Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello MJ friends, checking in on the sector, and it was an easy day for the bears, and what I mean by that is when you look at the leader of the sector and you see them reject from the high of the previous day literally in the first couple minutes of trading and then drop hard, that is a very clear double top that makes the bears extremely confident and it scares the bulls. So literally from the first 3 minutes of trading, the bears had complete control on today. Lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. The bounce at the end of the day, we did have a nice little signal, and it was share count. And again, I don't use level 2, not saying you shouldn't, but I have too much going on to be looking at level 2. But I do watch the bid and the ask, and we could see a big bid show up at 1953 for 50,000 plus shares. That marked the bottom. It then started to dance around a little bit. It got some filled at 1953. I put a buy order at 1954, got filled. Put my stop under 1953 at 1952. I was then risking 2 pennies and ended up selling too early, being a bit impatient, but I made 6 cents profit and risked 2 cents. And you might say 6 cents, big whoop, but if you put yourself in risk to reward scenarios that are that favorable, where you're risking 1 and your reward is 3 or 4 or 5, that is the name of the game of being a trader, and I will take that trade every single time. So if it was with 5,000 shares, I risked $100. My goal was $500. Didn't quite get it on the initial push and sold for $300. So if you make that trade, and people who held on a bit longer could have ended up going 2 cent risk for 10 cent reward, 20 cent reward. So low risk, decent reward scenarios, name of the game. In the end, the bounce is just an hourly weak bounce on CGC. It's a potential bear flag. If we see a break of 1953 first thing tomorrow morning, the hourly bear flag is confirmed. The hourly RSI will be right back to oversold. The 4-hour RSI is not oversold. And at that point, we're watching the daily higher low of 1821. There's a gap to fill at 1880 to be watching. I have been staying away from the sector at this point because RSI levels are not at a point where I am interested in trying to buy weakness. So we'll see if we confirm that hourly bear flag first thing tomorrow. Bulls would have to hold 1953 and break 1988 to try and see a daily inside bar form. Other names are looking even worse. Kron, pulling back hard, increase in bear volume. Red Marubozu, close at the low of the day 3 days in a row. The next level we're looking at, there's a little gap at 6, nope, that's not a gap, 675, not there. Higher low is 655, and that is approaching. Hourly time frame, RSI with a weak bounce, cooling off a bit. Bears have short-term control. The best case scenario for the sector bulls, and their only short-term hope heading into the new year, we have an example of CGC, and let's see if I can get a better time frame for clarity. But looking at CGC and APHA with the best example of this, let's just use the weekly chart. So it's a little bit tricky to see here, but it would be a left shoulder with resistance of 2248. This would be the head. The right neckline rejected from resistance from the left neckline, 2225, and we then have to form a weekly higher low compared to 1381. Keeping in mind, we are still well above that support level. We are currently 30% plus above that level. We can pull back 10% into next week and then try and form this weekly higher low. That's what has to happen on the new year momentum shift. We have to see a weekly higher low set either next week or the first week of 2020, and then we have to see the bulls show up and change weekly trends. It's the only hope for a sector-wide momentum shift. APHA, big day today for the bears, big bear volume, close at the low, daily higher low is lost. And if you remember a recent video, I said that when we see weekly trend changes from the bottom, first off, by no means am I calling for a weekly trend change, but I'm keeping an eye out for it in the next few weeks. But I said that when we see a weekly trend change, we get a scenario where you change the daily trend, the bulls say, finally we get some relief, and then you lose the daily uptrend to set the weekly higher low. And then that's where a lot of bulls lose all hope for the weekly higher low. So here's APHA, same thing as CGC. Resistance, 570, there's our head. Resistance, rejection at 561, and now we need a weekly higher low and then a break of those two resistance levels to see the first notable weekly shift in momentum since the weakness started back in February and March. That setup is there for both APHA and CGC, but it's not going to be easy for the bulls to do. But it's what I'm watching for. What are the odds that APHA sees a bounce and then just drops straight to a lower low? I do not think that's possible. It's possible. I do not think that is likely without significant bearish news. Trying to get this range here. And again, just talking about the size of the bounce and then the size of the pullback that would be required. We went from 376 up to 561. So a very significant move. And still with where we stand, 478, we are still a good 20-some% above the low on this weekly time frame. So bears have complete control in the short term, but I'm not giving up on the bulls just yet. Not falling asleep on the sector bulls is pretty much the point here. Hourly RSI is down in the low 20s on APHA after the week close. 4-hour RSI, not oversold yet. If we see that hourly RSI in the teens tomorrow morning with a flush first thing, I will be interested in a bounce play on APHA, keeping an eye on the 460s and 450s with a whole bunch of price action from that base that was established. ACB, lead bear, following through. 214 is the only support level nearby. That same weekly setup is not present on ACB, and it's not really present on Cron either. Pretty much just CGC and APHA have that clear setup as a possibility. So if ACB breaks 214, we're looking down at 2 psychological. Some rumors about potentially a buyout of GGB, and that would cause dilution. Either way, we've been seeing this weakness for a month. 4-hour RSI is oversold. Hourly RSI pretty crushed as well. If we drop down to $2 tomorrow, keep an eye out for a short-term oversold bounce. Hexo, bear break under 199. No support nearby. 195 broke. We're looking at 185 and 156 as the only levels. And again, the weekly time frame, not a clear setup for an inverse head and shoulders pattern. Just no weekly bounce follow through. OGI, bear break of the sideways channel. Support is $2.35 and $2. Bears in control there. The spike in bear volume is notable sector wide. VFF has been giving us bearish indications for weeks. Increasing bear volume, red Marubozu, break of all nearby support, and we're at the lowest price we've seen on VFF in many, many months. Next level, 577 broke. 5 psychological is the next level. Weekly bear flag. Anything on the daily chart under 648 is just a lower high. We can bounce 15% and still be in a daily lower high pattern. Lack of support means RSI levels can get more extended than we anticipate. So caution trying to catch a name like VFF on a bounce. They'll probably bounce sector-wide. The sector weakness was clearly apparent today. Everybody in unison weak. So we'll probably see the sector bounce together, but I am much more comfortable looking for an oversold bounce on APHA, which has this base of support from previous price levels, than I am on a name like VFF, which is in a bit of free fall. Labs weak as well. Ever since that gap up on news for profit taking, it's been all bears. 333, 332, and then 310. Anything on the daily chart under 391 is just a daily lower high. Bears are still in control of the sector, but watching for a short-term bounce play potentially tomorrow. Things would have to get pretty extreme for me to be looking to play that bounce on the hourly time frames. IIPR, still trying to shift momentum. We're not there yet. I need to see a break of 74.50 and 75.40 to say that our weekly higher low is established, and then try and see its inverse head and shoulders pattern play out. So if we want to compare this to CGC, it's a bit different, but we were in despair, pulling back well over 50% from the all-time high. We saw a big bounce on the daily. We changed the daily trend. We saw higher low and higher high. The bull said, finally, relief. Those of us that know to zoom out said, no, we're just looking for a weekly lower high. And then when we see this pullback looking for the weekly higher low, all the bulls get completely deflated and lose all hope again. So this is almost like a little mini version of what APHA and CGC have to see happen for the bulls, with a weekly higher low. And then, of course, the bull break has not happened yet, but that is the last piece of the puzzle that has to take place. It's possible, it may not be likely, but I will be keeping an eye out for it to start the new year. If there's one thing that I've learned from trading the MJ sector for 9 years, going back to penny stocks, it's that the start of the new year is generally a bullish season. And maybe that has to do with tax loss selling. Maybe it has to do with Santa. Who knows? But it's something I'm keeping an eye out for. Curaleaf. Bears still in control, dropping down to lower lows. Lack of support. Certainly not helping. Bulls 688. We have shares unlocking in the near-term future. Probably adding to some downward pressure. Anything on the daily chart under 810 is a lower high, well over 10% away. Support is 690, and then 688 and 645. And again, RSI levels just don't have me interested in a bounce. TRUL, double top and double bottom with our key bounce levels. So we had a key bounce level of 1325, which double bottomed. And we actually broke it by a few pennies first thing this morning. And then we broke resistance by 1 penny, but we're still within this range. So I'm viewing this as an equilibrium. Low of the dump, high of the bounce, double bottom, double top, and the bulls have to hold 1320 to stay within this tightening range. And we will likely get a break tomorrow, keeping an eye out for a volume spike on the hourly when that break happens. If it's an hourly bull break, we look for a daily lower high compared to 1650. If it's an hourly bear break, we look down to 1206 support. C-Web, free fall. Daily RSI is about to be oversold. We have no support. Aside from 982, it's just the all-time low. This is one of the weakest names in the USMJ sector. And anything on the daily time frame under 1231 is just a daily lower high. GTII is also in a bit of free fall. The only support nearby here, at least there's a couple levels, 1012 and 991. Anything under 1142 is just a daily lower high. IAN, lower high looking set potentially. 180, if we pull back any further, 180 is our daily lower high, and the bulls have to hold 149 and then break 180 to change the daily trend from there. OH, CL, and MedMen are all in the same boat. And they're all looking for a daily higher low after a notable bull move on the daily chart. Inside bar for OH today, but CL did not see an inside bar. We need an hourly trend change for the CL bulls to give us a daily higher low. And it's worth watching for sometime in the next 2 days, in my opinion. And if we see any more notable pullback, again, it's always on consolidation we look. Does it favor continuation or does it favor an equilibrium? And if we see a bit more red tomorrow, we're going to start favoring an equilibrium. And MedMen, declining bear volume is a good sign. And again, either tomorrow or Friday, looking for a higher low compared to 48 cents. And need an hourly trend change to be confident that it has been set. So things are looking bleak in the short term. We will expect some short-term oversold bounces. I'm not really interested in those oversold bounces, which again, I love bounces, and if I'm not interested, that usually means that the opportunity is not ideal. Other than that, I will be patiently watching for the next few weeks to see if weekly higher lows can be set in the Canadian MJ sector. So I hope you're well. Have a good rest of your day. Do some good things out there, and we will see you tomorrow. Mom's calling you.